The Chargers just lost a brutal game to the Denver Broncos, 31-28, and I just can't understand what the point of this game was. So here are my instant reactions to this game like we do every single week. If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. Let's not waste any more of your time like this Chargers team just wasted our time. What was the point of this game? So if you guys didn't know, most of the important games occurred before this Chargers game. Last night we saw the Jaguars and Titans take on each other for who would end up being the 4th seed. The Jaguars would win this. Entering today, there was a Ravens and Bengals game prior to the Chargers game, and if the Bengals were to win, which they did, it would guarantee the Chargers to have the 5th seed. So entering the start of the Chargers game, they were already the 5th seed and had no reason to play any of their starters. And yet, Coach Staley, who I will admit I am a big fan of, but I don't understand this, kept his starters in for not 1, not 2, not 3, but nearly 4 quarters of play. He kept his starters in on a game that had literally no meaning at all. And I just can't understand it. Like, of course, these are my instant reactions, so there's plenty of emotion that goes into these things, but what are you doing? And not only that, Mike Williams went down with injury, I believe in like the second quarter, presumed to be back-related issues. It didn't look good. He was carted off at the end of the half. He was attempting to walk his way to the locker room. It didn't look good on video at all. I did see a doctor tweet on Twitter that this is kind of common and Mike Williams likely won't miss the game next week, which is a massive relief. But nonetheless, why did you need to play these starters? And like, what was the point going in this? Joey Bosa, who just returned off of IR last week, week 17, seemingly might have potentially re-aggravated that groin injury that he had to get surgery on. So hopefully he'll play next week. I don't think there's been an update on him, so I'm not sure if that means it's not bad or it is bad if there hasn't been an update. Kenneth Murray looked like he got banged up there. He didn't miss any time, though, so it wasn't that bad of an injury. Austin Eckler took a massive hit. Justin Herbert took a massive hit, too, to his midsection there. I mean, I don't know what Staley was thinking, keeping his starters in. You know, for one quarter, maybe for the half, I kind of understand that, get that momentum. I believe momentum is a huge, huge part of, entering the playoffs as well as sports in general. But you captured that momentum on your first drive. Like, you looked really, really good, and you could have ended it right there and be like, okay, this offense does look really, really good. Or at the end of the, like, right there, or at the end of the half, because you already had 17 points, you could have kind of ended it right there and be like, okay, this offense looks pretty good. If you want to play your defense a little bit more because they started off rough, they allowed a touchdown on their first drive, you know what, fine. But, like, why do they need to play all the way to the start of the 4th quarter? Like, I don't understand that plan at all. At all. Now, thankfully, Herbert or none of the other major players seemingly had massive injuries other than Mike Williams and potentially Joey Bosa. Mike Williams, a lot of people are saying that he's likely to play, which is huge. He's a huge piece of this offense. Him and Keenan Allen work so much better together. They're amazing individually, but they work so much better when they're both on the field. I really hope Joey Bosa is able to play because he is just a massive, massive step-up improvement for this defense. And potentially Rashawn Slater could return next week. Lots of questionable decisions were made today. But, let's take a look at the stats nonetheless. So, for the Chargers, looks like they have this backwards. Chargers, Justin Herbert, 25 of 37, 275 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So Justin Herbert, for the most part, did play really, really well. This offensive line looked very solid, except for that one big hit on Herbert. And in general, the offense did look pretty good. So props to Joe Lombardi, once again, for kind of figured it out. Staley, again, I'm not so sure why you're keeping your starters in. We also saw Chase Daniels 5 for 7, 25 yards, and a touchdown, as well as a 2-point conversion. I really like that 2-point conversion. That was to Palmer, with the touchdown being to Keenan from Chase Daniels. I honestly liked how this offense was looking. Austin Eckler, 11 for 34. He took a pretty big hit there. Joshua Kelly, 5 for 18. Then Larry Roundtree, 3 for 4. So, the run game, once again, was not very good. we kind of saw that for most of the year, and it was kind of expected. I mean, the Broncos are like the 6th ranked defense, so it's a really, really good defense. But, passing game did look pretty solid. Keenan Allen, 8 for 102 and 2 touchdowns. I think he literally doubled the amount of touchdowns he had all year this game. Really, really good game. I really wish he played like this last week for my fantasy Super Bowl. Whatever. DeAndre Carter, 3 receptions, 45 yards, and the fumble on that big play that put them into the red zone. He would fumble. That sucks. Palmer, 4 for 39, 2-point conversion. Eckler, 4 for 36. Mike Williams, 4 for 32. And he got injured, as mentioned, kind of on a play where he got hit by a ton of different people all at the same time. Parham, 2 for 31. Everett, 3 for 8, and the touchdown. Kelly, 1 for 6. Roundtree, 1 for 1. Like I said, pass game was really, really good. Defensively, not a whole lot. I mean, you allowed 31 points to one of the worst offenses in the league, and it looked horrendous. And, man, I'd love to give props to Staley and be like, oh, this was intentionally bad defense to, make the Jaguars, target stuff that, the Chargers aren't bad at, and they just tried to show it. But you don't do it to this extent. 31 points allowed to the Broncos, and you were getting just time and time again just destroyed over the top. Maybe this is players, they know the 5th seed's locked in. They don't want to be playing, so they don't care that much. I mean, Asante Samuel Jr. allowed 140 yards and a touchdown, and he's been one of the best cornerbacks on this team for pretty much most of the year. Michael Davis and him have been locked down for a good portion of the year, especially the past couple weeks here. He allowed 141 yards. Kyle Van Noy had his, I think, 5th sack in 5 straight games, which is huge because he had none before that. Excuse me. Other than that, Derwin thankfully was pulled early. Joey Bosa had his injury. Joey Bosa got his first sack since returning from injured reserve. That was really good to see, and I do think that is actually momentum based, and that's a good thing as long as he does play next week. And we also saw Sebastian Joseph Day get an interception on a Kyle Van Noy deflected pass. The defense, base level, outside of points, which is obviously the biggest factor in this, didn't play too terrible, but they allowed a lot of massive, massive plays to the Broncos offense, which the Broncos offense is not good at all. Other than that, we look at Broncos stats real quick here. Russell Wilson, and thankfully he broke the whole bathroom touchdown ratio last week or the week before, because it would have been really sad if he broke that against the Chargers. If you know, you know. Russell Wilson, 14 for 25, a little bit above 500, or 50% passing, basketball stats. 297 yards, 3 touchdowns, and, of course, the interception that was from Sebastian Joseph Day. He honestly looked pretty good. Broncos get their 5th win of the year, move to 5-12. Chargers fall. What did the Chargers fall to? 10-7. Would have been great to go to 11-6. Latavius Murray, 15 for 103 and a touchdown. Chase Edwards, 8 for 44. Jared Jeudy, 2 for 25. Russell, 8 for 18. I mean, yes, the Chargers have been terrible in the ground game, but I think the Broncos might have had one of the best games against the Chargers' run defense for most of the year, and it wasn't that close. Jerry Jeudy, 6 for 168 yards. Jerry Jeudy went absolutely insane, nearly had 200 total yards in the game. Ridiculous. And I think he also had that huge fumble. He had an opportunity there to pass the ball on a bunch of flea flickers, reverses, ended up fumbling it. He did recover it. Freddie Swain, 254. Cortland Sutton, 333. Tyler Batty, 124. Latavius Murray, 115. Eric Tomlinson, 1-3 and a touchdown. Tomlinson scoring in the Chargers game. That's very, very common, sadly, for the other team. Defensively, for the Broncos, I mean, they allowed 28 points. They didn't look very good, especially for what they normally are considered. But Baron Browning had a sack, and that's literally it. You allowed 1 sack, and it was a huge hit on Justin Herbert. Overall, though, this game, man, the game wasn't terrible. Yes, it sucks that the Chargers lost. They were still within 3 points, including after they pulled their starters. But why did you need the starters in that long? I understand, personally, I think I probably would have at least had the starters play 1 quarter, maybe 2 quarters if I wanted to really, get some kinks out of some stuff. But 3 quarters, and into the fourth quarter. I think that is just terrible, terrible game management, player management, all that stuff, especially with the fact whether there was injuries or not. Mike Williams, Joey Bosa, I mean, Kenneth Murray kind of looked a little beat up. Austin Eckler might be feeling that hit tomorrow. Same with Justin Herbert. Just way, way too much more than necessary. Total yards, 470 Broncos, 354 Chargers. Is that right, or are these flipped? I'll just believe that they're right, even though they were flipped earlier. Passing yards, 280 to 295. No, they are backwards. They are backwards. No, they're not. What is going on here? I'm so confused. Rushing yards, 190 Broncos, 59 Chargers, 7.7 yards per attempt or per play. Broncos, 5.3 Chargers. And first downs, one difference. Third down efficiency, one difference. Chargers, right below 50%, not great. I mean, total plays, Chargers actually had more total plays. Sacks allowed, Chargers allowed 1, Broncos allowed 2, 5 punts each. Penalties, pretty close to even. One big one was that Joey Bosa face mask, which was, of course, 15 yards. If that one was out, then the Chargers would be pretty much dead even. Chargers lost 2 fumbles, the Austin Eckler one, and then the DeAndre Carter one that was putting them in the red zone. The Broncos also lost a fumble, and that was on punt. I don't remember who fumbled it, but the Chargers did recover. I think Alohi Gilman fell on that. I love seeing the special teams do good. And, of course, one interception thrown by Russell Wilson. And the Broncos had 3 more minutes. Overall, there's not a whole bunch to cover in this game. I just kind of don't really understand why you're playing the starters. The last kind of thing I want to cover here is a quick kind of talk. I'm going to have a bigger, longer form video on keys to success for the first playoff game in 5 years for Chargers going up against the Jaguars. But earlier in the year, week 3, we saw these two teams take on each other prior to a lot of the big injuries occurring. I think Keenan Allen was already out, but Chargers lost 10-38, and the Broncos were very, very dominant. Now, of course, a big factor in that was James Robinson, who is now no longer on the team. He had 17 carries for 100 yards, but Travis Etienne also had 13 carries for 45 yards, and Etienne's been doing very, very solid for the most part here. But, there's... You lose 10-38 early on. I don't see anything like that happening again. I think it will still be a decent game. I do believe the Chargers have the upper hand here. But the Jaguars are in run. I think they won 5, maybe not 5 straight, but they were doing really, really good. And they come up with that big win to clinch this spot. Herbert only threw 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 300 yards. The run game was horrible. Sony Michel had more carries than Austin Eckler. Eckler had 5 yards total. The run game was terrible in this game against the Jaguars. I think this was the game that Mike Williams also got hurt. He had 1 for 15. Palmer had 6 for 99. So, this was a really, really bad game, and I don't think it's going to be anything like this current one. But it's still, it still has relevancy. I have a more important video on this later, but, the Chargers had 0 sacks. They forced no turnovers. Mike Williams was absent. I don't know if he got injured or not. Keenan Allen was already out. The run game was just terrible. And on the other side of things, Trevor Lawrence had 3 touchdowns. James Robinson had 100 yards. Etienne had 50 pretty much. Zay Jones had 85. Christian Kirk had 72. The Jaguars pretty much had everything going, and the Chargers had nothing going, at all. I think this was the Chargers playing at their worst, and I think this was the Jaguars playing at their absolute best. And because of that, I think once we even out, I think the Chargers losing this game terribly is going to give them a lot more energy than the Jaguars winning the game against Titans, if I'm being honest. Because I just know how, losing a game that you're definitely expected to win and has no relevancy and to a rival team is going to fuel you a little bit more than, winning a game, yes, against a rival, but that was still really close and all that stuff. I almost feel like losing in Week 18, a frustrating loss, gives you maybe a little bit more angst and anger and energy than what the Titans were able to do, or what the Jaguars were able to do. They're ecstatic right now, but entering a game happy and like excited versus entering a game where you're like annoyed and you're like, we got to be better. I almost lean towards a team that is like annoyed and comes off that loss. But I mean, Jaguars playing at their best, like I said, versus Chargers playing at their worst. It's gonna get close. I think it's gonna be a close game in the end, but I do have the Chargers probably coming out on top. Like I said, I'm gonna have a full length video. I'm gonna be hoping for the Chargers, of course, but I don't know why you needed your starters playing that much. I don't know why this game mattered to Staley. I hope that all the everyone gets healthy. This is a frustrating loss, nonetheless. But what do you guys think about this game? Don't be bashing too hard on Staley. I mean, if you don't like him or you have issues with him, feel free to recite those in the comments. I do enjoy Staley. I hate what he chose to do today, but I do enjoy what he's kind of done with his team. But yeah, comment down below what you thought about this game. I'm not happy about it at all. I mean, if we would have lost, whatever. If we would have lost and it would have been the backups, I wouldn't have cared at all. But the fact that the Chargers lost, they lost important players, they lost with their starters, and they played their starters, and Staley put his players in a spot to get injured. Just really, really aggravating to me. But what do you guys think? If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to me. And as always, I hope it taught some today. I hope I made you smile. I hope I made you laugh, because I pretty much guarantee that this Chargers game did not do anything like that for you. And of course, you guys all be safe out there.